All right, so let's talk about Auguste Comte. This is a guy who looked at the absolute chaos of his time and thought, you know what, I can fix this. And how was he going to do it? By inventing a completely new science, the science of society itself. I mean, what an incredibly bold plan, right? It was born right out of the turmoil of post-revolutionary France, and to really get it, you've got to understand the man behind the idea.
And this quote, wow, it really gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? Because to understand Comte, you have to see him as this bundle of contradictions. He starts out his career as a celebrated scientific genius, the toast of Europe, but he ends his life calling himself the high priest of humanity. He was absolutely brilliant, for sure, but also deeply flawed, which honestly just makes his story that much more fascinating. Okay, so let's just paint a picture for a second. Imagine France in the early 1800s. It's it's a total mess. We're talking revolution, constant instability, conflict everywhere. And right in the middle of all this chaos, this one man steps up with a seriously audacious solution. He was convinced the problem wasn't just political, it was intellectual. And yeah, he had a plan to fix it. You see, Comte's career is really a tale of two halves. First, you've got the scientific genius. This is the guy who publishes his absolute masterpiece, The Course of Positive Philosophy. And this is the work that lays the whole foundation for sociology. But then comes the later phase where, let's be honest, things get a little weird. He actually tried to turn his science into a new religion. So, for our purposes today, we're really going to focus on that first, absolutely groundbreaking phase. And his mission? Oh, it was crystal clear. His whole argument was that you can't just jump in and start reorganizing society. It's like trying to fix a car engine without knowing how it works. He said, no, no, no. First, we have to understand it on a deep, scientific level. We need to discover the fundamental, unchanging laws of how societies operate. In his mind, it was always science first, then maybe some social engineering later. So at the very heart of this new science was this huge, sweeping theory of human progress. He called it the law of three stages. And get this, he believed it was basically the intellectual roadmap that could explain the evolution of every single society and every system of knowledge, ever. So what are these stages? Well, Comte believed humanity had to go through all three. You start with a theological stage, that's when you explain everything through gods and spirits. Then you shift into the metaphysical stage, which is kind of a transitional phase full of abstract ideas. And then finally, you arrive at the positivistic stage, which is just another way of saying the scientific stage. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, when you look at the details. So in that first theological stage, right, it's the priests who are the spiritual leaders, and kinship, family ties, that's the glue holding society together. Then we move to the metaphysical stage. Here, philosophers take over, and the state and the military become way more dominant. But that final stage, the positivistic one, that is all about science. Scientists are the new leaders, and society itself is organized around industry and our dependence on each other. And this just perfectly illustrates his core belief. The way we think fundamentally shapes the way we live. So, with this huge theory in his back pocket, Comte sets out to build the science that's going to lead all of humanity into this new, glorious, positivistic age. He saw it as the ultimate science, right? The one that would bring all other knowledge together, the queen of all sciences. He actually called it social physics at first, before he came up with the name we all know today, sociology. The whole foundation of this new science was a philosophy he called positivism. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's the belief that the social world isn't just random chaos. Nope. Just like the natural world, like gravity or physics, it's governed by these unchangeable laws. And the job of the sociologist? It's to discover these laws through careful observation of the facts, not to just sit around and speculate about mysterious ultimate causes. I mean, listen to how Comte put it in his own words. He's basically arguing that sociology should work just like Newtonian physics. It's not about asking why things exist in some grand cosmic sense. Forget that. Instead, it's all about observing how social events are connected, how they follow one another, and then uncovering the patterns, the laws that govern those relationships. It's all about what we can actually see and measure. And to justify this brand new science, Comte came up with this amazing hierarchy of all knowledge. You can think of it like a ladder. He argued that the simpler sciences at the bottom, like astronomy and physics, they had to become positive first. Then each science builds on the one before it, climbing up and up, all the way to the very top, sociology, the most complex and, of course, the last one to develop. This was his brilliant move to justify why sociology wasn't just new, but why it was the most important of all, the undisputed queen science. Okay, so we have this queen science, but what does it actually, do? What does it study? Well, Comte gave us a really clear blueprint for that. He divided the whole field into two main branches, the study of order and the study of progress.
He called them social statics and social dynamics. And here's a great way to think about it. Social statics is like the anatomy of a society. It looks at all the different parts, the family, the government, the economy, and asks, how do all these pieces fit together to create a stable system? Social dynamics, on the other hand, is the study of how that entire system changes and evolves over time. And for Comte, this was crucial. You absolutely could not have one without the other. They were two sides of the same coin. So the big question for social statics is all about stability. How does a society hold together? And Comte was one of the first thinkers to use what we call the organismic analogy. He basically viewed society as a living organism, like the human body. Each part, the heart, the lungs, the brain, they all have a specific function. And all those parts have to work together in harmony for the whole organism, in this case society, to survive. And this brings us to a really core problem that social statics has to deal with. See, as societies grow and get more complex and specialized, Comte called this differentiation, they actually risk falling apart. People can become more isolated, focused only on their own little world, their own private interests. So, how do you hold it all together? Well, Comte's answer had three key parts. First, our mutual economic dependence on each other. Second, a centralized government to coordinate everything. And third, and maybe most important, a common culture or a shared morality to give everyone a sense of purpose. And that brings us right back around to social dynamics. Remember, this is the other half of sociology. This is the part that studies change, or what Comte always called progress. Its goal is to uncover the laws of succession, the rules that govern how societies evolve. And for Comte, the master law, the ultimate pattern of all change was, you guessed it, his law of three stages. So at the end of the day, when you strip away all that eccentric high priest of humanities stuff from his later years, what are you really left with? Well, you're left with the essential blueprint for a brand new way of understanding the world. I mean, his legacy is just undeniable. Think about it. He gave the field its name, sociology. He fought to make it a real science, insisting that theory and observation had to go hand in hand. He identified some of the most fundamental questions of the field, like how do complex societies stay integrated, questions that sociologists are still grappling with today. And his whole way of seeing society as a system of interdependent parts, that laid the groundwork for huge theoretical traditions, like functionalism. He literally built the house that others would live in. Ultimately, Comte was a huge optimist. He truly, genuinely believed that if we could just figure out the laws of society, we could use that knowledge to build a better, more rational world. And that leaves us with a really powerful question for our own time, doesn't it? In a world that's facing so many immense challenges, can a scientific understanding of ourselves really show us the way forward? Was he right? I think that's the question his legacy leaves for all of us to answer.